Hey, I'm Farmer Rishi, and today I want to talk to you about composting. And I know a lot of you may have tried composting at home before, probably by making a compost pile. And a compost pile can actually be a very difficult thing to do right because there's a lot of management involved, there's a lot of time involved, there's a lot of maintenance involved in a compost pile. So today I'm going to show you a few different ways to compost without making any pile at all. So we're going to get right into it. I'm going to show you the first really very simple, easy way of composting at home, which is a method I just like to call dig and bury. And it sounds exactly like it is. What I'm going to do is dig a hole right here and bury some of this food waste in that hole. So in this method, what we're seeing is that our food waste, again, is food that can be eaten by the soil. And the soil really can eat pretty much everything that we eat. You know, you're talking about vegetables, fruits, dairy, meats. Now, you might have a little bit of, if you have rodents or small animals around your yard, you may not want to put too much meat or dairy in here, but soil can definitely break down all of those things. So I got my small hole here, and now I'm just gonna throw some of my food scraps in here. Cover them back up with the soil, and I'm done. The next system of composting I'm going to show you is called worm composting or vermicomposting. And in this system, what we do is we feed our food scraps, our leftovers, to a specific type of worm, which is called a red wiggler. And the red wiggler, what's special about it is that it eats half of its body weight in food every single day, so it's a very voracious eater. It multiplies very quickly, and it makes a really beneficial compost that has a lot of microbes that are beneficial for our garden. The only thing about worms is that they don't eat everything that we eat like the soil does. The soil, like I said, is the most basic system. It can handle almost anything, but these guys will speed up the process a little bit and give you a different compost at the end. What you'll need for worm composting is a worm composting bin. You can buy one or you can build one, and we have a link in the description to a video that I made a few years ago about how to make a worm bin. The worm bin that I make in that video is called a vertical migrating worm system, where you have multiple trays that stack up on top of each other, and the worms move up as they eat your food scraps. So go check that out and learn more about worm composting. And we're going to go on to our next system, which involves chickens. And chickens are such a great way to turn your food scraps into compost because they don't need a lot of space. Even if you're in a small urban lot, you can still keep chickens as long as your city allows it. And chickens also eat pretty much the same exact foods that we eat. Chickens eat grains, they eat fruits and veggies, they love eating greens, and they even eat meat. So when we're feeding our food scraps to our chickens, and watch how excited they are to come after these, we are, one, turning our food waste into a valuable resource, the chicken manure, which can be used in our garden. We are also going to get eggs out of this that we can eat. We can even eat the chickens. We can get meat out of it. So it's a really beautiful cycle that we're encouraging here, and we're getting all sorts of benefits out of it. The earth is getting a lot of benefits out of it.
Amazing.
If we're composting indoors, we need a small and contained system, and what we're going to make right now is a worm composting bin out of 5-gallon buckets you can get at any hardware store. So what we're going to need is 3 5-gallon buckets. We need a lid. We need some kind of basin to catch any liquid that might drip off. And then we need a drill and our drill bits. And what we're going to do to start is we're going to drill some holes into the bottom of every bucket. We want to perforate the bottom of the buckets. I'm using a 1/4-inch drill bit here. And what we end up with is a bucket that has plenty of holes on the bottom. When we put these onto the basin, those holes are going to allow any liquid to drain through and allow any worms to come up from one bucket to the next. We also need to drill some holes on the side here for ventilation. We want to allow some air into the bucket because the worms need to breathe. But to do that, we're going to use a really small drill bit. 1/16 of an inch, because we also don't want to allow any flies in. So I'm going to switch my drill bits here. Okay, so I got my 1/16 inch bit in here, and I'm just going to go around the edge and make a bunch of small holes for that airflow. All right, so once all 3 buckets are drilled like that, then we're going to start building our system. We're going to put our first bin here on the bottom, and we'll have our lid on top. We're going to open that up and add our worms in here. We're going to add our food scraps in here, and we're going to keep adding until this bucket fills up about halfway. You want to be careful not to add food scraps in here too fast. You want to let the worms kind of eat through before you keep adding. And when this bucket is filled up halfway, then I'm going to add the second bucket. All right, and now we're going to start filling into this second bucket. And when that fills up halfway, now we're going to add the third bucket. And so now we have fresh food scraps in here, food scraps that are still being eaten up over here, and on the bottom we should have finished compost. We're going to take that out, we're going to use that in our garden or in our pots, and then we're going to stack that new empty bin back inside these others. And so in that way we're going to keep just pulling compost, finished compost out from the bottom and adding our empty bucket back onto the top. So our worms are continuously moving up and leaving their beautiful compost behind.